What's up, everyone? It is Lan here again with another episode of Cheeseheadz Weekly. This is episode 24 now. It is Tuesday, July 4th. Happy Independence Day, everyone. It's good to be with you today. And, my fireworks was, at least so far. Maybe I'll see some more here. But so far, my fireworks has been watching some Christian Watson highlights. I am stoked for the season. I just need to watch some Romeo Dobbs highlights now, but I've already watched and rewatched Jordan Love's highlights. I've watched Christian Watson's highlights several times, especially the pass 63-yard touchdown against the Eagles caught from Jordan Love. Man, these guys are going to be so much fun to watch next year, no matter how good the Packers are. And I mean, the stakes, there's not a ton of expectations for them. Most people are predicting them to be last in the division, although you can credit Bucky Brooks. He predicted that they would be first in the division. And it seems like they're just the most stable team, even with Rodgers leaving, than any other team. Especially more, for sure, more than the Vikings and the Bears. Maybe not Lions. Lions are doing a good job. Their culture is great there with Dan Campbell. But yeah, Bucky Brooks, I think, laid out some pretty good points there in his prediction for that division. I'm doing a division preview here again today, but it is not the NFC North yet. When I get to the NFC North, I will probably do a preview of the other three teams in the division, and I will do a Packers preview, schedule preview, whatever, record, that my predictions for them, plus some, since the Packers maybe have a guest on the show for that, and we will preview the Packers ahead of next year, all in one episode. So that should be fun. It'll be a while. It'll be the last division I cover, and likely the last division I cover, and um, so it could be a good while yet. This is our third division preview. We're doing the AFC West. But before I get into all of this, I'd like to mention a few things. We have the Q&As and the polls on Spotify every single episode. Be sure to check them out, participate in that. I received an answer in the Q&A last week about the Dolphins. A friend of mine actually said he thought that the Dolphins could do even better, could go 14-3. I find that interesting, and I think personally, um, that's probably their ceiling. I think they could do that possibly. But it is very hard to get the 14 wins, no matter who you are. Even if you're the Chiefs or the Eagles, it is tough to get that many wins in the regular season. So I don't really expect that, but I do think it's possible. I think that's their ceiling. They have that ceiling. Um, Pretty much their defense needs to improve. Their offense has been great. I think their rushing attack will be good even without them signing Dalvin Cook. You never know, it might be better even without Dalvin Cook. Either way, I think the rushing attack is going to be good, just the way that system is set up there with Mike McDaniel coming from San Francisco, and we all know how good they run, especially on the Packers. Um, so I think they'll be set up for success. But this all hinges on whether Tua is healthy, and so I went with the more realistic, what I thought was a realistic prediction. And I believe in the poll, I had two votes voting for the Dolphins as the record that makes the most sense. One for the Patriots then, and one for the Bills. Um, so, yeah, I was one of the votes for the Dolphins, though, I believe. um, So there is a link in the description of every episode. Send in a voice message. You can send in a question. a comment on what you think of the show or a certain episode of the show or something, that'd be fine. You can ask for a certain topic. That would be great too. Anything is great with me. Haven't had one of them in a long time. The show's available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Pandora. New episodes every Tuesday. You can hit the bell on Spotify at least to be notified when a new episode comes out. Tell your friends about the show. That would be nice. Um, get the show out to more people, and that's how we grow the show and continue to make it better for all you listeners and fans of the show. Also, you can rate the show, which also helps to get it out to more people. And check out my website uh, at greatcove.net/cheeseheadz. And I post a few things on there. All the podcast episodes are on there, so you can listen to the podcast on there. And I have a few other articles as well on some of our things. I will, at some point, probably be posting the teams, kind of a recap of our Packers all-time offenses draft that we had a lot of fun with, as well as some grades for that. I'll probably do that after we do the defense. We are planning to do that at some point. Here probably in this off season here before the season starts here. And so once we're done with that one, I will put them both together, recap both of them, put in grades for both of them, and so you can look at all of that. Go back and look at what our teams were, and remember how fun that was to listen to those episodes. And for me, I'll be remembering how fun it was to make that episode, and do that draft, and I'm really excited for doing the defenses one for sure. So that was a long intro. Not a ton of news that I've seen, at least not on the Packers front. Hopkins and Cook still unsigned as far as the NFL at large. The Packers will not sign either of them. And so everything's quiet, and the break between mini camps and training camp, which starts, I believe, July 26, 27, 28, in that range, end of July is when that will start, and that's a very exciting time as well. And I am planning to do a training camp preview before then as well for the Packers. So without further ado, let's get into my AFC West division preview for today. I am working towards, once we get to all the division previews, I will also go over a playoff bracket, where I expect everyone, all the seeding to be. This is all intertwined, so if I have, say, the Texans playing the Ravens, and I call that a loss for the Texans, then that's going to be a win for the Ravens. It's all intertwined. I'm putting it all together, so I'm going to have a complete projection, all 32 teams, all divisions, playoff prediction, record prediction, seeding in the playoffs, and everything, all the way to my prediction of who will be in the Super Bowl and who will win the Super Bowl. And I'll do that all hopefully before the season, and then we can sit back and see how it plays out. And maybe at the end of the season, I'll go back and look over it and see how I did. So let's kick things off with the Las Vegas Raiders. They start out the season. Not the greatest situation. They have Devontae Adams, probably the best player on the team. They have Jimmy G, but he's injury prone. I'm a little bit concerned of just whether or not he's going to push the ball down the field. He doesn't have the greatest arm, but he does have an arm. I mean, he can throw the ball down the field, but he never really did that very much with the 49ers. And, Devontae Adams is always getting open downfield. I mean, he can get open everywhere, but it's going to limit him a little bit if he can't be hauling in the deep balls like he was last year. They got Josh McDaniels. It's just a mess. The way that is, they should have Rich Bisaccia right now as their head coach. I'm perfectly fine with them not having him. They're not fine with that. I'm fine with that because we have Rich Bisaccia as our special teams coordinator and associate head coach, and I am just stoked for that. I am here for that all day, every day. That's just amazing. Rich Bisaccia is a great coach. I have not heard, I've personally not heard anything bad said about him, players, coaches, organization, anything. The Raiders players wanted him back. I do not understand that decision. And they are kind of a mess right now. And so defense is not going to be good. Um, and we'll see about the offense. They have Josh Jacobs at running back, so their offense could be okay if Jimmy G stays healthy. But as far as defense, I don't think they're going to do that great. I'm not high on them at all. Don't expect them to do good. And I could possibly be on the low end of what most people think they're going to do. But I just do not see them as being a very good team at all this year. And a good bit worse than last year, I'm pretty, if I remember correctly. So, we will start out. I think they're actually in contention for the worst team in the NFL. So, if that gives you anything. Week 1, they go to the Broncos division matchup. It will be a loss. They go to Bills in week 2. That is a loss. At home versus the Steelers. That's a loss. At Chargers week 4. That's a loss. Versus the Packers in week 5. Definitely a loss. Versus the Patriots week 6. At home. Still a loss. And then they finally go to the Bears, to Chicago to play the Bears in week 7. They finally get their first win of the season. Then they play the Lions at Detroit. That's a loss. They play the Giants at home. That's a loss. The Jets at home. Still a loss. At Miami to play the Dolphins. That's a loss. And they stay home versus the Chiefs. That is a loss. Then they have their bye week. Then they go home well rested to play the Vikings. I have that down as a win. Not too many people would predict that. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to go over strength of schedule, but the Raiders have the second hardest schedule, and that certainly does not play to their advantage. Um, and then they play the Chargers at home. That is a loss. At Kansas City to play the Chiefs, a loss. At the Colts, week 17 is a win. Their third win of the year. And then they play the Broncos at home. Week 18, that's a loss. And they go 3-14. Not looking good for them. Now, as far as rest disparity here, I will check that out. Let me see here if I can find them. It looks like they actually lose. Oh man, they lose rest. They're -4 in that regard. So net -4 from a net 4 days less than their opponents. Not good. They have the second worst schedule, second hardest schedule behind the Patriots. I do not expect much from them, and their projected win total is 7.1. To be honest, I'm not sure where those wins are coming from, how you can get 7 wins out of that. I'm not high on the Raiders at all, as you can tell. Don't expect them to do much. Next team here will be the Denver Broncos. They will finish number 3 in the division. They have a pretty hard schedule too, 23rd easiest schedule. They're projected here to get 8.5 wins. The rest disparity is +3, so that helps a little bit. Their schedule is definitely will be a little bit easier than the Raiders, and I have them doing, I believe, better than last year. Although I don't, yeah, better than last year. They have a winning record this year. We'll see at the end once I get to my playoff projections what that looks like. See if they end up doing any good there. But we'll start off their first game, week 1 at home versus the Raiders. That's a win. They stay home versus the Commanders. That's also a win. Then they go to play the Dolphins in Miami. That's a loss. Then they go to Chicago. Another road game. They win that one. At home versus the Jets. That's a loss. At Kansas City on Thursday Night Football. That will be a loss. Then they play the Packers. I say they win this one. As much as I hate to say that as a Packers fan. Then they play the Chiefs at home. That's a loss. Then it's their bye week. And we have the Bills at Buffalo. Monday Night Football. Definitely a loss. They play the Vikings at home. Sunday Night Football. They win that one. As you can tell, I'm not very high on the Vikings either. But that's okay. I don't have to be high on anyone in the Packers division. Then we're at home versus Cleveland. That's a loss. At Houston, that's a win. At Chargers, that's a loss. Another division game there. At Detroit, then the next week is a win. At home versus the Patriots. They win that one. Versus the Chargers at home. I say they win that one. Their second division game against the Chargers. They split that, and they beat the Raiders twice in the season at Las Vegas in Week 18, and that puts them at a 10-7 record. I think that's pretty reasonable for them. I think they can improve with Sean Payton joining there. They have a really great defense with Patrick Surtain out there, just locking down top receivers. I think it's going to be a pretty good year for them. Now we will move on to the Chargers, finishing number 2 in the division. This is going to be a pretty competitive division, I think, but I think it's fairly clear at this point. The Broncos and Chargers could flip flop. I think they're probably the most likely to flip flop there, depending on how well Russell Wilson plays mainly, and how well Justin Herbert plays, and if the Chargers can do a little bit better. They made an upgraded offensive coordinator, which was a good move. Fired Joe Lombardi, but we'll see what can happen. I have them finishing second. I think they can. They did a year ago. I think they can do it again, but it just depends on what the Broncos do, because I do think they will improve to some degree. So if we're looking at strength of schedule here first, the Chargers, they are in the middle of the pack. Nope, they're at the bottom. They're projected to get only 9.5 wins, which is a little bit less than what I'm going to predict them to get. 27th easiest schedule, so pretty hard. They're pretty far down the list, pretty hard schedule. Just one rank above the Chiefs, so slightly easier than the Chiefs. But they have a -6 rest disparity, 6 less days of rest than their opponents. That is going to be brutal. And Kansas City, I don't know where they fall as far as rest. They're -13. So Chargers have a good bit easier schedule than Kansas City. I still have Kansas City doing really great though. So let's look at the Chargers schedule here and predict their wins and losses. They go home, or sorry, they are at home in Week 1 at not at. They're at home. I already said that. They're at home. Versus the Dolphins in Los Angeles. For some reason, I keep wanting to say they're at Miami. Then they go. By the way, that was a loss. Start off with a loss, but then come back. Bounce back quickly to play the Titans in Tennessee. A win in Minnesota versus the Vikings. It's a win. Then they go home to play the Raiders. That's a win. They have an early bye week in Week 4. And then they go home to play, they stay home, sorry, versus the Cowboys. Well rested at home. Monday Night Football. I say they eke out a win there in a tough matchup. Week 6 at Kansas City. That's a loss. Week 7 at home versus the Bears on Sunday Night Football. They win that one. You can tell I'm pretty high on the Bears too, if you know what I mean. uh, at the Jets in Week 8. Monday Night Football, they lose that one to Rodgers and company. That could be pretty close and pretty fun to watch. At home versus the Lions, then they get a win at the Packers. As much as it pains me to say, yet again, that is a win. And before I even looked at the Packers' schedule really closely to actually predict their wins and losses, just predicting other people's schedule, I already have the Packers down for at least 3 losses. And they aren't the hardest teams in the world for them to lose to. No, sorry, I don't have them for 3 losses. 2 losses and a win. Of course, they're going to beat the Raiders. But that could be interesting. Devontae Adams back. Well, I'm not sure if he's in Green Bay or either way. They're playing against Devontae Adams and the Raiders at home versus the Ravens. Then for the Chargers to continue my main flow here. At home versus the Ravens Sunday Night Football, they lose there. At New England versus the Patriots, that's a win. They go home versus Denver to get a win. Division matchup there at Las Vegas Raiders Thursday Night Football. That's a win. At home versus the Bills, they lose that one. At the Broncos, they lose that one. Their second one against the Broncos. And then versus the Chiefs, I said they upset the Chiefs in Week 18. And for all we know, the Chiefs might just do good enough anyway, since they are so good, that they're sitting starters or they don't have much to play for. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say that the Chargers are going to get the win there. Going on to the Chiefs, I'm going to say that they have a pretty awesome season, even with the hard schedule. They start off at home versus the Lions with a win. At Jacksonville, the Jaguars Week 2 with a win. Week 3 versus the Bears at home, they get a win. A win at home versus the Jets Sunday Night Football in Week 4. And then they go to Minnesota to play the Vikings. Week 5, they win. Week 6, at home versus Denver. Thursday Night Football, that's a win. At home versus the Chargers in I don't remember. That's a win, though. They go to play Denver in Denver and win that one. They play the Dolphins in Germany at technically a home game for them. It's a win. Then they have their bye week. Then they play the Eagles at home, Monday Night Football. Well rested at home, Monday Night Football, and Super Bowl rematch from last year. And I'm going to say the Eagles win this one. Get their revenge on Kansas City. And then they go to play the Raiders in Las Vegas. That's a win. At the Packers, that's a win. So now we're 1-3 as far as my Packers record so far looks. Not great, but they have some easier teams to play. Don't worry. I'll have them beating the Bears and Vikings for sure. Versus Bills. That is going to be a win at home. At the Patriots, Monday Night Football, that's a win. At home versus the Raiders, they win. At the Bengals, at Cincinnati, I'm going to say they lose that one. And that's only their second loss of the season in Week 17. Then they go Week 18, like I said, at Chargers, they lose that one. They go 14-3. And pretty nice record. In case I didn't mention it, I'm not sure I did. The Chargers won 11-8. So let me just recap this very briefly. Coming in first in the division, the Kansas City Chiefs go 13 and what did I do wrong here? I think I meant to say 14-3. I wrote down 13-4. 14-3. The Los Angeles Chargers, number 2 in the division, they go 11-8, one game better than last year. The Broncos go 10-7, number 3 in the division. I think that's very reasonable for them. The Raiders plummet. And most people predict them a lot higher. They are in contention to get the number one pick in the draft next year, and they're last in the division. And they are going 3-14. So that pretty much concludes my AFC West division preview. I hope you found it interesting. Feel free to leave me a comment in the Q&As, participate in the polls, or you can leave me a voice message as well. It's a great, fun show to do. I like doing these division previews, and it should be interesting to see what my entire projections look like for the entire NFL, the playoffs, the Super Bowl, everything. And then, it'll be really fun going back over it then at the end of the season, to see what we got, what if my predictions were anywhere close, especially for the Packers. So that'll do it for today. Thank you for listening to the show. I really appreciate the support I've been getting. Like I said, participate in Q&As, polls, send in a voice message. You can check out the website as well. Hopefully when I'm done, I can put everything on the website, my whole predictions, the spreadsheet here, that I have of all my predictions and everything. Hopefully, but we'll see how that works. I might not be able to do that, but I'm hoping to. But only the third division. We're going to look at the AFC North, likely look at the AFC North next week, unless I decide to do something else. And yeah, that should be a fun one to do as well. Pretty stacked division. And that will be the last one for the AFC then as well. So, thanks for listening to the show. Rate the show. Tell your friends about the show. And I'll talk to you later next week. Goodbye.